Hello, welcome to the Healing Power of Lament. I am Rebecca Taguma, the Executive Director of the Trauma Healing Institute and American Bible Society, and this is my colleague, Phil. Phil, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a psychologist here in the Philadelphia area and also advisory council for the Trauma Healing Institute, and happy to be with you today.
Great. So, for the last 14 years, the Trauma Healing Institute has provided resources for the church that combine mental health best practice with the Bible to help people recover from trauma, grief, and loss. We're best known for our small group curriculum, which has been used in 113 countries by almost 500,000 people globally. We also have self-guided resources like Bible studies, informational videos, and tools with practical skills for healing, like the one we're going to share with you today. During our session today, we'll use a short booklet called Lament, a prayer for times like these. We will look at what is a lament, how we can lament, and why it's helpful, as well as give some examples and give you a chance to try your hand at lament as well. The resource we'll be using is available to you for free. You can scan the QR code on your screen or go to traumahealingbasics.org. That's traumahealingbasics.org to download this resource or others like it. So, Phil, let's get started. What is lament?
Well, in short, lament is the expression of our deep pain, our questions, and yes, our complaints to God. It's an act of worship in dialoguing with God about what is going on that doesn't make any sense in our lives. It might be surprising to you to hear that lament or complaint to God is allowable. Many of us were raised in communities where that was definitely a no-no. We should not complain. In fact, we might have even heard stories about how the Israelites complained in the desert and suffered consequences. But in fact, actually, God invites our lament. A third of the Psalms in the Bible are categorized as a lament. And it might be interesting to ask yourself the question, why are they there? What purpose do they have? And it appears that God has invited us to express our pain to him, both by ourselves and in community with others, in song practically, right? To do so, and that it is an act of worship.
Wow. It's really powerful to think about expressing my pain and my emotion as an act of worship. I want to know how to do that. So let's talk about how to lament. Lament is something that can be done in words, music, dance, drawing, or any other kind of creative expression. Whatever form your lament takes, it is a way to start telling your story, naming your feelings, releasing painful memories, exactly what you just said, Phil. And the lament can be either composed by an individual or a community. Let's look at an example as a way of understanding how lament works. So lament has 4 parts: a call out to God, telling God about your pain, asking God for help, and finally, affirming your trust in God. Now, these 4 things aren't necessarily in order, nor are they all required. The only thing that is required in a lament is that you tell God about your pain. So let's look at a specific psalm, Psalm 13, and walk through the different parts of it. Where do we see these different parts of lament in Psalm 13? So the first step is to call out to God. In this psalm, David writes or sings, "How much longer will you forget me, Lord, forever?" He's crying out to God, using the name for God that he feels most comfortable with, and sometimes remembering when God was there in the past. The next step is to tell God about your pain. And this is where there's a lot. that David has to say. How much longer will you hide yourself from me? How long must I endure trouble? How long will sorrow fill my heart day and night? How long will my enemies triumph over me? David is putting all of his pain, all of his feelings into words. He cries out, he rages. You can do the same. Your anger cannot bother God. Your pain will never frighten God away. God is not worried over your emotions. He wants you to express them and to give them to him.
Hmm.
The step, the next step is to ask God for help. In Psalm 13, David says, "Look at me, O Lord my God, and answer me. Restore my strength. Don't let me die. Don't let my enemies say, 'We have defeated him.' Don't let them gloat over my downfall." God already knows what you're going through. You can be completely honest with him and ask for help. Sometimes just saying help is enough because that's the only word you have. It's just the most common prayer in the world, help. The last step, step 4, is affirming your trust in God. In Psalm 13, David writes, "I rely on your constant love. I will be glad because you will rescue me. I will sing to you, O Lord, because you have been good to me." He's remembering and he's acknowledging God's power and God's presence and activity in his life. Sometimes we don't actually feel like we can trust God, or we are really struggling. But the willingness to simply write a lament or express those feelings shows some trust in God, and that's enough. If you can talk to God, it means that you are lamenting, you are expressing, you are connecting with God, and that is enough. So that is a great example of how we lament. But why is lament important? What does it do for us psychologically and spiritually?
Yes, lament is expressing pain in such a way that we can feel more connected to the people around us and to God. I want to remind you that even God laments. Jesus on the cross recites from Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This was an act of worship, an act of dialogue, an act of connection, right? Seeking connection. What we know is that when people go through deep pain and suffering, is that they are left with the unanswerable questions, a recognition that this is not the way it's supposed to be, and a confusion about why it is this way. And when people are suffering this way, we know that they begin to start the healing journey and process when they feel connected to others, when they realize that their pain is seen by others, that it matters to others, that others can validate the pain, that they're not crazy, that it is real and their pain is deep. And we actually see that people recover from trauma more quickly when they feel connected in a community, when they feel connected to God, and that their pain matters. And so that's the reason why we do it. I'm thinking about Elie Wiesel in the Holocaust survivor who struggled to recover from surviving the Holocaust. And maybe many of you know his trilogy. One starts with the book Night, but he has a quote. He says this. He says that it is. Let me just have it here. He says, "I'm reminded in this." He says, "I have not lost faith in God. I have moments of anger and protest, and sometimes I've been closer to Him for that reason."
Hmm. If someone who went through the Holocaust can say that sharing their pain and suffering has brought them closer to God, wow. But I think for those of us who have maybe not experienced trauma of that scale, is lament still any good for us? And I think the answer is yes. I want to read a quote from someone who did lament as part of one of our small groups. And I think it's really, I think it sums up part of why lament is powerful. She says, "I thought I had dealt with the pain from my grandmother's death and some of the hurt I had experienced from unresolved hurt. Writing the lament and writing down my pain to take to the cross was healing for me, but also revealed the pain to me that I did not realize I still had. So the act of writing lament, even for something like a grandmother's death, hurt that we experience in the normal course of relationships, can be really powerful in understanding our own feelings, but also giving them over to God and healing from them. We want to share with you a couple of examples of lament, both written lament as well as an art lament.
Why does it seem like you're so far away? It seems like you don't answer the things that I pray. When will you show yourself to me and appear? Give me a sign to show me you're near. Don't give up and just let me go. It's me, God. Did you forget about Joe?
Lord God above, lovely, faithful Father, my heart is lonely and heavy. You gave me beautiful angels, and my selfishness took them away. I've wandered from my family, lost and alone I've been, always blaming someone else, but never looking within. Lord God, I cry out to you as I stumble up your mountain. My feet are bloody and my knees bruised from falling.
These are powerful examples of laments and are just a few of the many we could have chosen, but they're both done by individuals. I understand that laments can be done in community, right, Phil?
Yes, exactly right. There are actually psalms that are considered community lament psalms. You can check out a few of them. It's an exhaustive list that you can find, but Psalm 12, Psalm 14, Psalm 44, Psalm 74. So, one example could be that a church might read some of these Psalms together in a community. But I'll give you a specific example. There was a church that I know that suffered a natural disaster where many of their parishioners lost their homes, and it took a long time to rebuild. Some months later, they met together to lament the losses and the ways their community had changed forever. And one of the ways they did that is they had each of the members write their own lines of lament. And then someone took lines from every member and collated them, looked for themes and connections, and collated them into one prayer. And then they read them aloud to the entire congregation. And the congregation said not only was the writing of our lament good for us to express our pain and our confusion to God, but hearing that everyone else also felt much the same helped us feel connected, not only to each other, but in our worship.
Yeah. Wow. And I think that's what we often are missing in those times of suffering and trauma is that connection with others and to know that we're not alone. We want to take a few minutes now and invite you to walk through lament yourself. You can again use the QR code to download a version that you can of our resource that you can fill out yourself. Or you can do it some other way. We've talked about art. We've talked about music, dance. You can do a lament in any creative format that you want, or simply pen and paper. We invite you to pause the video and spend a few minutes working on a lament. If you did the lament exercise, well done. And if not, we hope that you'll give it a try at some point. If you did it, I encourage you to take a moment to think about your experience. There's no right response. It may not have been particularly powerful for you, or it might have been deeply moving. If it's something that you want to share with someone else, choose a close and trusted friend to share your lament with. That can often be a very powerful part of lament. The reminder, you can download the Lament resource by scanning the QR code or from our website, traumahealingbasics.org, where you will find other resources like this one. And also you can learn more about our small group curriculum. The Lament resource is available in English and in Spanish. And of course, you can order printed ones if you'd like as well. You can find out more information on our website. Phil, thank you for being here with us today as we looked at the practice of lament and what it can mean for us. We hope it's been helpful to all of you, and we look forward to seeing you again.